Welcome, everyone, to Elevate with V. I'm so excited to be here with everyone. The podcast was inspired by my own healing journey. I aspire to share amazing healers and coaches to help us each elevate on our journey so we can keep aligning with our soul's calling and gifts. I can't wait to introduce my guest today, Todd Medina. He is a blogger, a writer, a speaker, an artist, broadcaster, a co-collaborator of the Solology platform. So I was introduced to his channel in May of 2022, and then I actually reached out to him in August because I was going to be going to Sedona. So I was super excited with the thought that I was actually going to get a chance to meet up with him. It didn't happen, but that's okay. What was nice is, in addition to listening to all of his amazing programming, I've had the opportunity to join him a couple of times during his open live sessions, which are always fun because whoever's around joins in, and it always ends up being like this amazing conversation. So I just wanted to say to you, Todd, that I absolutely love your energy, your authenticity, and your genuineness. You have this warmth and openness and a generosity of spirit. I love the ease with which you are able to connect with people and have them share their stories and experiences. And you have so many amazing gifts, which we will get into a little bit today. And I know there are many wonderful things that are brewing that hopefully you will share with us today. So welcome, Todd.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just so everyone knows, Todd is also very humble. When I asked him for his bio, he literally wrote like 2 lines. I'm like, Todd, there's so much more to you, but that's okay. We'll get into it when we do our interview. So excited to have you here with me today. So like I mentioned, this podcast is all about healing journeys. And so I wanted to ask you, what kind of led you into your healing journey? What event or events kind of took you onto that path?
Okay. Well, just a lot of things. It coincided with 2012. I mean, it was officially May 30th, 2011. But I think it was, without going into all the details and circumstances and story, it was a tremendous amount. I think a lot of people were probably in the same mode, regardless of the length of time, some around that time, some 10 years before, some 2 or 3 years later, but mental, emotional, some physical. It was like I was always spiritually connected. That was never not a part of my every waking moment, in so many words, but everything was unraveling. And then it just kind of popped open. And when it popped open, I thought about it for a few weeks, and then I did have options, but I chose to go onto the streets and figure it out. So I went, I guess, technically homeless for a couple of years, and spent a lot of time on the streets and a lot of time in a constant communion and a lot of walking. I walked a lot every day. And so, it was just basically a, revelation, series of epiphanies, awakening, expansion, whatever you want to call it. I call it the brutal honesty of the soul. And I kind of came out of it or evolved through it, becoming responsible to my conscious awareness's capability of everything in my life that I knew about, every circumstance, every consequence, the situation I was in, the things that had happened, the highs, the lows, more importantly. And with that, I really from the beginning and walking, I think, I was 49, 50 years old. I'd had chronic back problems for 12 years, which were kind of like, leveled off for a few years as I'd lost some weight. But there was this physical, I guess you're using the word healing, and I guess that's the right word in this conversation, that seemed to be in alignment with it, and so many other things. But if we're talking healing, I would just say things were aligning outside of my, you might say, outside of my physical body, energetically, my different bodies, things I didn't know then that I might know now. And that kind of like bringing up the tail end of it was my physical body, because I was doing things in my 50s that I hadn't done for 30 years. So, yeah, I think that's kind of how it started. That was in summer of 2011. It kind of all culminated, started having like divine episodes and apparitions and out of bodies, and um, working in the astrals by the universe's invitation, and just a lot of stuff. Everybody has these pretty miraculous things. Sometimes, sometimes we don't think they are. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of how it happened.
Wow. So let me kind of, first of all, thank you for sharing. I mean, that's I don't know how many people go through the experience. I'm sure the numbers are quite high for people who do end up becoming homeless. And because there are a lot of people who listen to this who are familiar with like spiritual journeys and healing. It's almost like your soul planned for you to go through that experience for a reason. And you said that you were actually pretty tapped in spiritually from like, was it pretty much since you were a kid? Like, did you always feel that you were somehow connected or to spirit?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I think when you're a kid, although like many of us, I can't recall everything that happened back then, especially from the things that were not given attention to by our parents and ourselves ultimately. And we move away from what we were just coming from, basically. But I always do remember, like from my first memory, actually was at about a year and a half, years old. We were moving out of an apartment and moving somewhere else, and I remember that day very distinctly. And I remember there being like a tone or tones, like a cicada, universal cicada, something like that, rhythm. And I remember there being a certain pixelation um, to my world, um, and a certain presence that was me. And that, I guess, has never left. But I think there were times when the this the human, the this aspect, uh, uh, I think, at times would lose a connection, or it wouldn't be as strong. But really, really, through the highs and the lows and through it all, it was a constant. It was a constant dialogue with myself, I guess.
Wow. So did you have any support from your family? Did you keep this to yourself? Or were you always like, okay, I know there's something a little different about me, but did you feel kind of comfortable sharing, or were you kind of just on your own kind of journey for a long part of your childhood?
No, it was I'm Hispanic. I come from South Texas. We had a lot of family roots in the town. Big family. My father's family had 7 kids. My mother's was 3. But the families were very entrenched in the community for many, a few generations at a minimum. So there was a lot of that culture. It was very Catholic, very conservative, very Roman Catholic. Um, so as I was indoctrinated, and as I was, journeying along, and I started to become more, uh, indoctrinated into the things that school and religion and such. I went to church, and I still like to go into a Catholic church because of the atmosphere. Maybe it's just because of my own journey or something, but I've always felt it's the silence. Um, and that part of it I can't really, but so when I went there, I was serious. I listened. I didn't jump into it with both feet. I always had this other conversation going on with Jesus or whoever was in the golden little temple thing behind the priest on the back of the altar. And I had conversations with all the different icons that were in the church, Mother Mary, and so on. So um, I don't think that's something, I would bring home the prayer cards and I put them on my dresser, and I would give sermons, and I do it in the backyard. But my family really didn't know that. I'm sure as, parents of my kid, might have been aware of it. And that would have been a good thing, right? But I think, once I got to be 8 or 9, uh, my father remarried. She was Southern Baptist. I got to go to Baptist churches where people were like singing and talking. I'm like, what the hell's going on? It was a very social atmosphere. I went to a couple of black churches with a couple of friends. Which was really amazing, actually. The singing and just the celebration of life, and of just a moment in time where, hey, we're all the same. You know what? Be humble, and then you go back to living. And I guess the Catholics kind of did that too, because they'd go to confession and think their sins were wiped away or whatever. But anyway, so once I had a little, diversity with that, and I got into my high school years, um, yeah, any night I partied a lot when I was a kid. I was driving at 15, I was working at 15, I was out a lot, and I prayed all the time. If I was going to go party, um, it's probably not something I should be saying, but I always wanted to be the one driving because, uh, you know, I'm not saying I should have been sometimes, but I was a kid and there's no excuse. But I just knew I was watching that part of it. It was weird, and I actually had a couple of little divine episodes, uh, like with a giant hand when I was a kid on a bicycle. Same thing happened to me when I was 16 in a van full of guys drinking beer, driving down the road. Um, yeah, so it was always a very personal thing above all else. And through the highs and through the lows, and then I, got married and went into the business world and got divorced, and things just kept going on and on. A lot of different experiences, but yeah, I would say in the years, yeah, I always was reading. I had about 3 different libraries, really four. The last one was really small. I had certain books that I really, really liked, that I really had around me all day, every day for, I'd say probably 10, 15 years. Um, and so, yeah, it was always personal, and I could feel something coming. So whenever the 2011 period came, I wasn't surprised, in a weird way. It was like the game on, or I'm nuts.
So would that be like how you were so kind of going back to how you said there were a couple of experiences where, like you said, you felt like a hand or some sort of protection, like you always knew that there was some sort of protection around you? Is that kind of what you were sharing? It's like if something was going to happen, that you sensed that something was actually there to protect you from something bad happening.
Well, I mean, from a young age, I would just say through my personal intention and the personal expressions that I would send to the universe, if you want to put it in that language, through my thoughts and that dialogue that we have within, um, and where I was at, So when I was a kid, I had what I would call nightmares for a long time. Through my younger ages, maybe up till 7, 8. I don't know, maybe even longer. Like I know for sure, like, totally stopped like around 21 or 22. But in those early years, it was a lot of. As I look back now, I'm assuming fresh, recent kind of past lives involved a lot of gargoyles, a lot of reptilians, a lot of weird looking things, a lot of crazy shit going on. Excuse my French, and shifts. And so I had a relationship with angels, guardian angel, uh, kind of a guardian angel team, I would say, and Mother Mary, and Jesus, and some Joseph. I mean, so I kind of like um, constructed my, my field, my perimeter, and and so that was always there. The two incidents that happened, and the reason they stayed with me is because they both basically occurred the same way, felt the same way. But one was on a bicycle. It's probably 7 years old, 6 years old, and one was in a van, with a busload of guys drinking beer. And in both cases, I was about to be hit very hard. And in both cases, I felt, and I guess third eye could see a big hand pick me up and move me over, literally. So that stayed with me. And I'm sure there was a few other things here and there, many things. I remember sitting in a tree and, somebody was talking to me. And later on, when I reawoke after 2011, that came back to me. But so I always felt like the magic was around me, and I had some things that were occurring in the months preceding up to this wake up that were, I didn't look at it at the time because there was so much stress in my life, but like they were signs. They were like physical signs, like almost like, well, they were virtually paranormal. So when the I guess the thing happened, it happened very suddenly. And basically what happened was I was in my backyard, and this is 1:11 in the morning, not even knowing the significance of 1:11 and all that. And I had a major apparition at that time, from my perspective, appear in the trees. And it was the face of the cosmic Jesus, right? And we had a conversation, and it was short, and it was a huge download. And so that, for some reason wasn't, I guess maybe to kind of connect it all, it wasn't something that surprised me. But if you were just reading a story, it's crazy. Like, it's profound. And then after that, especially in the first 7 months, even though very intensely through most of that 2 years, but the first 7 months, there was a lot of divine episodes. A lot of things happened. Angels and devils.
Wow.
All divine though.
That's amazing. Well, and I think what's beautiful in what you're sharing is, you were always kind of open because you were so connected from like when you were a kid. So, for some people, if that happened, they could have like freaked out or just run back in and be like, what the heck did I just see? You did have an ease and an comfort and an openness, which is probably why I think more things were being shown to you, because you're in that state of openness. And that's beautiful. That's a beautiful experience or experiences. And so kind of coming back to when you were sharing about the homelessness, since you were so connected, did you have any questions when you were encountering that? Because you said it was for quite a few years. Was there sort of well, why is this happening? What's the reasoning? Or were you just in complete faith and surrender?
Well, that's a good question. I was in complete faith. I've always been in complete faith. I've never not had faith. In fact, the night that May 30th at 1:11 in the morning in 2011, what happened was, and I'm just go ahead and tell the story because you'll understand. I looked at what was appearing, and it was very clear and distinct. And I knew it was like, I look at it now that was an apparition for my higher self. I projected that out there, but it doesn't matter because it's all the same thing. And I looked up at the face of, again, take my perspective from at the time. I look up at the face of what is clearly Jesus. And we obviously know each other. And he's laughing. And I said, why are you laughing? What's going on? I said, what's going on? And he said, why are you so worried? I've been standing over your family for 2.5 years. And 2.5 years earlier, my wife at the time had eaten downed a bottle of Tylenol PMs, and it was a whole other incident. I could talk, a lot of spiritual stuff in that. And when he said that, I just felt like this wave, really plasma, heavy, wave go from head to foot. And I said, oh yeah. And then I looked back up at him, and he was laughing harder. And he said, and I said, what's up with that? And he said, well, you're the one of the unshakable faith. We're going to find out tomorrow. Your life's going to flip upside down. And it did. So the faith uh, was always there, and I was given signs. I was given direct communication, like many people. It's all different for everybody, but in that period of time when you're really getting jolted, you mentioned the soul. I believe. Well, I know me. I know my soul. My soul said, "Let's get this done up front." And we just passed the 10-year mark officially. December 21st, 2022. For the what I mean. But so yeah, that was always there, and I was, I guess, very open to what was happening. I had a couple of Kundalini experiences when I was in my 20s, when I was really first getting into this. 23, 24, I had in the books, I was really breathing exercises, meditation, visualization, the whole 9 yards. And so when so okay, so when this happened, I forgot where I was at. I forgot where I was at.
No worries. Yeah, you were just kind of sharing how
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So when I went out there, I did have faith, and it was something that maybe one day I'll write about, because I can't explain it even to this day. I couldn't. I'd have to just devote myself to it for 100 days or whatever. It would literally, because it was a living dimensional experience. There was there was there was lesser veils or no veil, uh, off and on in flashes for a long period of time. And the first 7 months was the most concentrated. And the first, and I'd say the next, probably, no, I'd say the first 12 to 14 months were very concentrated. Like it was daily demons, daily angels, daily apparition, daily voices. I mean, you asked me if my family supported it. Of course, obviously, you could see the story when I was younger, but yeah, as I got older, everything blew up. So I was absolutely insane to them, and to many of them, I still am.
Well, this is really interesting because part of when you're sharing about all of these experiences, I mean, it sounds like that's kind of the plan, to just kind of slow you down and have you just focus so you could have almost like this very compressed experience where all of this stuff could like happen, so your soul could like evolve and grow and all of these things. And it probably wouldn't have been possible if you were like tied up doing like 20 different things.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. That's interesting. One of the other ones I'll tell you real quick, because I'm not one to really, I don't know, but so right before 6 weeks in the house in solitude, listening to music all day long for 6 weeks, contemplating, knowing what I was about to go do. Somehow my soul knew it, my human was knew it, but it was, let's party for 6 weeks in solitude, and because everybody was gone, everything was gone, my whole world was gone. So uh, it was, I was fortunate, for some reason, and I guess in those 6 weeks I was really embedding it. And from the moment I stepped out, like literally, I was getting direct messages of in multiple types of ways, that were well, for me, I can only speak from my own experience, that were simply profound and biblical. And that pace remained for about 14 months, and it never went away, but it was quite extensive and wild and crazy. It really was.
Wow. So were you in trust when you were going through that phase when you were kind of on the streets, like you just trusted the universe that you'd be taken care of through it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was, like I said, I was very blessed or whatever to have very direct messages. And So I can remember, and again, I consider these all divine. My definition of divine episode might not be somebody else's, but these were all divine. I recognize them as divine episodes. The guides I had were of a biblical nature or a biblical flavor, let's say. Um, most of them, and yeah, and the earth was involved. I mean, I had three spirit guides that are relatives of mine from lives that I was given memories of, and specific memories, and this whole storyline. Um, I forgot what you asked me.
No, I was just asking that you were in complete trust when you were like on the streets for that period of time. So that
Yeah. Well, yeah, and okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for reconnecting me. But it it wasn't like I said. They were very direct. So I'm walking the streets literally in the first few nights and pulling my everything with me, and I'm in a park, and I heard, just understand that anything you've ever done, thought, said, everyone will know. And I kind of like my heart dropped for a second because I've led a pretty wild life up to that point, and then I realized what it was saying, that everyone will know about everything. And this huge, oh yeah, remembrance or something like that. And then the other one, I think, might have been the same night. It was kind of like, hey, what's going on here? You are soul. I said, yeah, I know. I've always known this. And now I'm looking at the world, I guess, and not to take anything away from it, because I think life itself is it. So whether you're in the middle of a hologram or a simulation or whatever the case is, you're conscious, and that's life, regardless of what you might have turned off in your multidimensionality or not. It makes no difference. But yeah, I would be walking around at night and I'd look up, and I'm in a simulation. I'm in a video game, and it's much more than it seems.
wow. So are you thinking at some point you're going to write a book? Have you written a book about just that period of your life, or it just sounds so fascinating?
Um, I like I said earlier, I think the day will come, maybe. A lot of the intel I've received over the last 10 or 11 years, we all have our specificities, and mine is about producing, drawing in energies, uh, adding frequencies to a never expanding vibration. That's what I always say at Soulogy. And putting them out, remixing them, integrating them, putting them out in the highest band of frequencies that you intend and can, to your abilities, but also to find the smoothest, most harmonious ways to do that, and they're always being remixed and new ones coming. All right, so I forgot again.
You're good, Todd. No, that's perfect. And that's a perfect segue for us to kind of now move into a little bit of like, what you've created, this beautiful platform. I'd love for you to share Soulogy, like how it came about, and what your vision was. And if we can get into that a little bit, it would be great for people to learn more.
Now I realize what's happening here. I'm used to being the one that's sitting in that chair. Now I know how all my guests feel. But I was so nervous. Now I'm not nervous, but I'm like, it's a different rhythm. Um, well, Soulogy is the same thing. Soulogy came in that second 7-month period, and it came directly. Again, it was just like a second half of what I call the spirit walk. It was 2 years, but I'd say the first 14 months was like 7 months spirit walk, 2-week, 3-week break, 7-month spirit walk. So it came through in the same divine communication methods that had been occurring. It fit with what had been happening the previous 7 months. So it really wasn't, it was something that, it's a word that I always knew. So when it was given to me, and I said, "What is it?" And I heard the other side of truth, and that's it. So it's like, that's a big, you know what I mean? So, but it was always, so I just followed it. It was, some of it was intuitive. It wasn't really, it really was just very organic. What do I do? I didn't really use Facebook. Okay, I'll start a Facebook group, and then it just starts there. And but I think as we get further along the road, and so I'll just speak in the context of Soulogy. But I think as we get further along the road, we're going to realize we cannot tell our story in a linear fashion. That's one of the illusions of this simulation, of this matrix. So the reality is that Morgan Lee, and I didn't know her, in 2008, I think, maybe 9, she put, she had been connected about 10 years, and she put out a prayer to the universe. And she said, now that I got all this stuff and you give me all this information, it's going to be coming in 10 years and the world's going to be, we're all going to be awake. I'd love to find a place, or create a place where, a platform, I think is the word she used, a platform where people can come and share their skills, abilities, and their stories. So in 2012, on her birthday, when I still didn't know her, I was given the name and started the group. Also, something I didn't know, I still didn't know her, and that I didn't know till later when it came up on Facebook Memories, Soulogy One Studios, the artistic offspring of Soulogy, was was given to me on her birthday in 2014, 2 years after Soulogy. So it's significant because I went into Soulogy and I was told by the Soulogy team very, very emphatically every single day, it's not about you. It's not about you. So that's always been a mantra. It's taken on higher and higher meanings to me as time's gone on. What I didn't know was that it was obviously non-linearly conceived before. And so eventually we connected in the physical in September of 2015. And then the story starts to unfold over time. Most of, what I could tell you unfolded, we met in September 2015, probably through, it's still unfolding, don't get me wrong, but I'd say by 2019, she came in. That's when the show exploded. She said, if we're going to do this, then let's do it. And I'm doing 8-9 shows a day for like a month or 2 months in the summer of 2018. We had a union ceremony, divine union ceremony. So, I can tell the linear story, but energetically, we were also having visitations. We were shape shifting with each other. I know that sounds weird, but I'm talking about like, and there's a reason I'm saying all this. We were instructed, we both heard it, we kneel in front of each other on the bed. We don't talk about this till the next day and experience the same thing. We're looking at each other. We start seeing our DNA starts lighting up fluorescently in both, and then we start shape shifting. And what it was like a shared memory of many, 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 many lives, and so on and so on. Another one we had was in Kauai. We were driven to Hawaii, and we were there for 10 months, obviously doing a lot of grid work. We were there for many purposes. And of course, you don't know this a lot of the time where you're there, and you're just hanging on for the ride. But we had a connection where we had connected with an original monad like to say second level. What I mean by that is you have a monad, and then one of the extensions of that. There was 24 people. We both experienced it simultaneously as related bed connecting, and it was the last time we were conscious in the group in over 60 years. At the time, I was 58, 59. That was the time that we met, or the last time we were in that monad was when we agreed to come down here and do what, in some parts is Soulogy, right? Now, the importance of all that is that as Morgan and I interacted, virtually for 18 months, which is really by phone calls only, and until she came over the first time. And then, of course, from there, the balance of the masculine and the feminine became the igniter or the alignment of the physicality with what had already occurred. And so it continues to this day. And I've watched it. She's watched it. We've watched it. A lot of people have watched it, and it's evolved and over and over again. The power of the third energy is very much a prominent part of it, if not the biggest part of it. We're just caretakers, and many others are and will be. But yeah, so that's kind of why you have to, bring into the conversation all those weird things that we talk about on our shows, because as long as we keep it on the shelf and in the weird department, it's not going to take, it will be impeded in its progress and taking on a physicality and having, and we're seeing a lot of evidence now, but having that, I don't say dominant influence of the triad, let's just say, in our field as individuals in a collective, but to be in harmony and be in its full strength and harmony, just as the divine feminine energy is or has become.
Wow, that was powerful. I got so many chills when you were kind of sharing about your journey with Morgan. And yeah, that's so powerful. And I love what you were sharing about like how everything comes together. And this very like multi-dimensional piece that doesn't get captured a lot of times. Like you said, it's not linear. The stuff is not linear. And I think that's one of the reasons why I and a lot of other people love the content that you produce and the people that you bring on, because those are the things that we get to hear about that we don't necessarily get to hear about on a lot of other channels. So I love how that kind of has happened. And so how does it work in terms of people coming and sharing stories? Like, do you find people, do people reach out to you? Is it a very organic process?
So all of the above.
Okay.
It's especially now that, the like I can't even, I can't tell you. I mean, I got 60 texts probably right now. I probably got, it's yeah, you just do the best you can. But yeah, sometimes it just happens a lot of different ways. But now I feel like that we're in one of those spots before another blast off. I think, collectively, individually, but certainly it feels, a lot of my experiences through Soulogy, obviously, I can feel it. So I don't really know what that looks like. I'm kind of seeing it come together now, which is just, doing your best to answer everyone or touch everything, and you can't do it. And just really relying on, like I had one today, somebody just wrote, said, I'd love to have a chat with you. That's pretty much what they said. They didn't say, hey, I do this, I do. And I just wrote back and said, okay, what about these dates? Now, something in that short message felt resonant, and I was willing to, go for it. It might happen tomorrow, and I go right past it. A lot of the ones I look at, I haven't seen. I mean, they were written 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months ago. So it's just a combination. And it's been it was a little more challenging in the latter part of 2022. I think not just in scheduling shows, but probably for everybody, because there was a lot of normal not being there anymore, I guess you could say, from the human's eyes. So kind of like, and it makes sense to me too. You think in the in the linear world, 8 to 5, get on the conveyor belt, do everything in order, have a rhythm and a discipline. But to me now, it's kind of moved towards waves. So I find that I work in a wave, and then I go back and I do a few shows, and then I have to do a bunch of, you know what I mean? So it's comes in a lot of different ways, and it's changing very rapidly. I just don't have an answer.
No, that was actually perfect. And, it's really interesting because, you pack in a lot of shows and content every day. I mean, it feels like a lot. I mean, when you're talking about like who's doing like 9 to 5, I'm like, your schedule's pretty full in terms of the content that you bring in. So, I know you're saying that things like kind of shift and evolve and you kind of just go with the flow, like it's your intuition, your guidance. What are you feeling is coming up next in what you're creating? Are you looking to create something new? Are you looking to add anything? What's kind of floating around these days?
Well, I've been working on something for a long, long time, since 2018, and most of it's been out of my mouth. I know in the energetic field, it's already been done. Okay, so if you go back to that, whatever that prayer that Morgan Lee in Adelaide, Australia put up in 2008 or 2009 was, uh, I'm totally convinced, based on a few of the things I just told you, and the general, aspect of what I told you, that those things were created. That place was created through union, through, you might say, holy conception. This is the continuation of the Trinity. So, since 2018, and really getting downloads specifically about the whole Soulogy field, since 2012, and with specificity from about 2014, energetically, it's happened. It's like a flower of life. I mean, I know so many groups, so many different people gathering followings through the interactions, unions. I know so many unions. I think I counted like 26 one time. So, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And there's a part of me that wants to see it in full physical materialization. And I know what it looks like. I know what it would take. I know pretty much it can be done. I feel like it probably will be done, but I'm also at a place now where, and maybe it's after this 10-year period, that 10-year from the 2012, December 21 till last year, the same date. A lot of, I think, what we're still seeking to do, we've done. And the humans catching up. So I'm much more sensitive now, as I think a lot of people are, after this period. And Solology is very important to me, and I'd like to see that happen. I'm not going to imbalance my lifestyle or alter my lifestyle, or deprioritize anything. My whole thing is convergence. So who do you want to be with? What do you want to do? What do you like doing? And put them all together. And that's kind of where I'm headed. But I'm content that Soulogy is, you might say it in a certain way, a done deal.
I love that. That's amazing. And it's just it just has this energy of being really open and inviting. And just, I feel like when people come on, and like I said, kind of in the introduction, that I think you just make people feel so comfortable. It's like wherever they're at is perfect. And they just get to share their experience and their stories and just get heard and listened to. And I think all of us that tune in, like, really resonate with that, because like you said, it's not a linear story or a journey. And so to be able to hear those components and pieces, it just kind of is really wonderful. And so I'm really excited to see what else is going to be happening. And I love that you are content in where you're at this point. And it was really interesting when I was inviting you to the show. It was almost sort of like, oh my God, Todd is always on the other side interviewing people. And now I get to like interview him. So it's a different experience.
I know it took me 30 minutes to remember what, I don't know what that was, but yeah, I figured it out.
You sure did. And that's, that's the beauty of this. Like the way that I do this podcast is very much a little bit like how you do it, where it's just very organic and we just go with the flow, and
Yeah.
everything is okay and everything is embraced. And I'm not trying to have anything be perfect. It's just about us being authentic, exchanging information. And I would love for more people to know about you and your beautiful channel. So I'm just so grateful that we've had a chance to connect today. And before we kind of move towards the end of our podcast session, I did want to ask, is there anything you'd like to share in terms of what you're feeling for, either the energies or what's going on right now? We're kind of like, towards the tail end of January, moving into February. If there's anything you'd like to share.
Well, I think that the best advice I've gotten, I'm around too many people to, uh, you know, dive into my own thing. It's all the same anyway. But I think probably the most accurate and the smartest thing in my gut, my intuition and also my reasoning has been something that Morgan's talked about. A lot of people have talked about it. She's talked about it in a certain vernacular, as has Ty Hudnall. And that's regarding the container, right? And they say we're all building our container. The two of them have been talking about this for a while. Morgan for a few months. That we reach this period once we've gone through this 10-year corridor, and everything has changed. And so we're building from the new. Nothing can be constructed with a dualistic component. So it has to be in the Trinity energy. And we're just getting comfortable with what that is. It's the perfect integrity, the perfect intention, perfect love, and so on. And it's real. But I think that part of the reason that we're slow, we're not slowed down. I mean, we're kicking it pretty good now. But it's still not full blown out, totally wide open yet, because it's changing at Soulogy. It's changing for me. It's changing for you. I think a lot of people right now are in this kind of hibernation or incubation period. So the gist of what they're saying is build your container, take your time. We're all coming out in March, and how proficient and efficient and aligned that is it's going to be rooted in our shadows, in the sense that only our shadows would keep us from the highest percentile of the Trinity energy as possible. So it's that multifaceted, multidimensional within the human kind of new link up. So I can't really, but I say, yeah, you're building your container. That I'm still in their words. And then mine would be, for me, just my mantra right now is as I, go through my life, and my human still is both the parts of it that aren't coming, it's fading, and the parts that are staying, that are in alignment with my soul, are still talking. I tell myself a few times throughout the day, time will not be a stressor. My relationship with time is changing. That's why, I gave it the respect of telling the Soulogy story today. Time is not that it's not linear from our active consciousness, but it's not only linear. And so this is the world I think that we're stepping into. And I just try to keep that one stress off my life every day, because it serves me so well.
I
That's
love
it.
that. Thank you so much, Todd, for sharing that. Yeah, I think I too am in that place of, all this sort of like time constraints that have been like, all this conversation about time. And so I think it's now up to each of us, like how we choose to work with that. And, I'm kind of working with it in my own way. But yeah, I just love what you're sharing in terms of like what you see and what you're feeling, and that, the focus is inwards, and to make sure that we're doing all our work so that we can be, kind of like the best versions of ourselves in order to create and do all the things that we're looking to do. And I know that community is really important to you. I know it's really important to me. And I just see more of us connecting and doing things together. Like I just feel this energy of co-creation and collaboration. I feel that so strongly moving forward in this year. So it brings me so much joy that you said yes to join me and to make time to come and connect and to share your story and this beautiful platform that I hope more and more people are going to join into. So I just want to thank you so much for joining me
Mhm.
today. It's been wonderful, and I'm so honored to have you, and, really, really excited for all the programming that you continue to put out that I enjoy so much. And I'm excited to share it with everybody that's tuning in today.
You're welcome. And thank you. I enjoyed it.
Wonderful. And just so everyone knows, all of Todd's information will be in the bio section everywhere that this gets posted. So definitely tune in, and I will catch everyone on the next episode.